Welcome back to Right Here in Mass. Joining me today is Kelly Martins, the founder and principal consulting of both GRATI Consulting and GRATI Collective. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. I'd love to have you start off by sharing with our listeners more about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start at the beginning, right? That's always the best place to start. Um, my entrepreneurial journey has kind of been a squiggle. I feel like, I've just followed the paths of things that lit me up and made me, happy and excited and whatever I was passionate about. And, my career just has kind of transformed along the way. But before I became an entrepreneur, I was working for the Springfield School Department, and I was doing project management in IT. So I was managing some implementations of software and things like that. Um, but while I was working there, I actually, on the personal side, was going through an abusive relationship. And when I got out of that, I wanted to just reevaluate my life. I was at my rock bottom. I was dealing with depression, all of these things that abuse kind of strips away from you, your independence. Um, and I just was at this point where I had this realization that I only wanted to do things that made me happy in life. And I wanted to figure that out. I'm like, all right, well, what is it that I like to do? I like working at the job that I have, and I'm good at it, but I don't love it, right? Like I only wanted to just be happy and just live life how I wanted to live it after that. So it was kind of like a aha moment for me when I got out of it. And at the time, in thinking about what I wanted to do, if you ever dealt with depression before, you know how hard it is to just simply get up and get dressed. So, what ended up happening was I ended up opening an e commerce store that was an online boutique. And at the time, it was called Contribution Clothing. And the premise of it was that I was going to partner with different nonprofit organizations that supported women and female empowerment and give back to organizations that supported women because I only, I didn't want anything like that to happen to anybody else, essentially. And through doing that, one, it helped me heal. I made some amazing connections and I grew my business extremely quickly. And I will preface this by saying I did go to school for marketing. I do have a background in design and all of that. So it's not like I just, started from scratch and figured everything out. Like I did have that background. But it grew really quick and I started having people say like, "Hey, how'd you do that? Can you show me what you did? Can you help me? Blah, blah, blah." And then it just organically turned into consulting. And I opened GRATI Consulting. So GRATI is actually short for gratitude. And the reason why that name is what it is in both of my businesses is because I was grateful for the journey that I was on because it led me to where I am and who I am now, right? So if I had never gone through that really hard time in my life, I wouldn't be doing something that I'm really passionate about and that I love. So that's kind of how the consulting came to be, and I transitioned from working a 9 to 5 to working for myself, and here we are. Gosh, I don't even know how many years later, maybe like 8 or 9 years into entrepreneurship at this point, which is crazy to think about, but yeah, that's how it all got started.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, one of my favorite things to talk about is the butterfly effect for anyone who isn't familiar with that term. It's basically what Kelly just described. It's like if you didn't do one thing in your life, there's so many other things that wouldn't have happened because you didn't do that one thing. And so that's exactly what happened with you. I mean, first starting Grady Consulting and then eventually starting Grady Collective.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit about what I do with GRATI Consulting and then how it kind of translated into, I guess you could say, the next phase, which is the collective.
Hmm.
So through GRATI Consulting, I do brand strategy. I'm more of like a brand strategy agency. So, um, brand positioning, website design, copywriting, marketing strategy, social media. But the premise is everything is done in a VIP day, which is an intensive day. So your traditional agency, a website design, for example, would take 4 to 6 months. This is a condensed project that we sit down and we bang it out in a day. So I always say like we get shit done in a day and a half
Mhm.
kind of thing. Um, and I also do business coaching and business strategy. So I help people figure out their offers, their pricing, how to position themselves in general as a brand. And in doing that work, I have found that maybe 80-90% of my clients are dealing with imposter syndrome and are comparing themselves to other people, all of these like um, mental layers that you go through in life, but also as an entrepreneur, right? Like, this person's doing better than me on social media, like all of these things. And it prompted me to open the collective because the GRATI collective is really focused on the mindset. So I say GRATI consulting is focused on the business and the collective is focused on the individual. And that business has an online course. It's called the GRATI Framework. It's a 5-week course, and the focus is on helping people develop a toolkit essentially to help them with their mindset practices. So, not promising to cure anything, but helping people develop habits that could maybe help them, if they wake up stressed, maybe relieve some of that. And also, workshops and keynotes and things like that that are focused around mindset work.
Yeah, and I love that you spun out that second business because of that work that you've done and the experience that you've had throughout your own entrepreneurial journey. Because I feel the same way. When I started my company almost 10 years ago now, it's like I thought the key to success was 90% strategy, 10% mindset. But the first few years of owning my company, that changed. And I realized, no, it's actually 90% mindset and 10% strategy. And so if you don't have that positive thinking, that manifestation incorporated, it's like you're limiting yourself from what you can achieve.
Yeah, and I don't want to make it seem like, everything was so easy for me too. It really wasn't. There were so many moments throughout this journey that I've wanted to give up. And, there was a period of time where, like I got married and, my husband's also an entrepreneur. So I had in my head, like, all right, I have to go back to work because one of us needs to carry the health insurance and benefits and blah, blah, blah. And I went back to work for a company and it was a terrible fit and I hated it so much. It felt like almost soul sucking in a way. And I was like, no, like I was on the right path. Like, why am I giving up? Because like the standard of a married couple is that somebody has to be working a 9 to 5 and somebody has to, do all this. And my husband and I sat down and we were like, no, like we're fine. We can figure it out. And, but yeah, even me, I've almost given up too. And, it's hard. And I feel like a lot of times too, I have a lot of business owners that have come to me that are starting out and some of them just have this overarching optimism. And I feel like I have to reel them in a little bit. It's like you're probably not going to be an overnight success. It's a little unrealistic. It takes like 3 to 5 years to build something.
Totally. And I think that's one of the tricky things about the online space is that there's a lot of, I guess, inflated content out there of it
Yeah.
making it seem like something can happen overnight and that something can happen so quickly, but it's really not the case. And like you said, it can take 3 to 5 years. And so I don't necessarily subscribe to like the hustle culture, but I do believe that in the first few years of your business, it does take a little bit more effort to be able to build up your company so that you can get to the point where you can take a little bit of a step back because you've built that solid foundation.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think like kind of going back to what I do with GRATI consulting, that's where the importance of the foundation of your business comes in, right? So like that your
Hmm.
brand positioning is the most important thing that you can set up in your business. And I feel like even for me, it's the hardest thing, right? Because you're so emotionally attached to what you're doing that you sometimes have a hard time seeing things for what it is.
Hmm.
So like I said, even for me, like I've hired an outside coach to help me look at my business and be like, all right, Kelly, like realistically, like let's figure this out. And that's part of what I do in my consulting work. And then on top of that, marketing strategy. And I feel like
Hmm.
those are the two pieces that small business owners overlook is like the brand positioning, which is the foundation of your whole like the blueprint of the house, right? Some people just go straight to building and they don't have the foundation set, right? So
Hmm.
the brand positioning and then the marketing strategy is like if you don't have a strategy in place, you're guessing. Like you don't
Hmm.
know, right? Like so, if there's someone listening today and they're just starting a business or maybe they're struggling in their business, I guess my recommendation is like go back and look at your brand positioning. Who's your target audience? How are you speaking to them? Are you speaking to the right audience to begin with? I've had clients that I ask them, who's your target audience? And then they tell me, and then I go look on their social media and I'm like, well, you're not talking to your target audience, you're talking to somebody else. So we got to go back, right?
Hmm.
So having those pieces, I think, is so important for small business owners because you have to have that foundation, you have to have that strategy, no guessing. You need to know who you're talking to, how you're talking to them, and creating your content in every piece of marketing information because marketing is not just social media, right? So, yeah.
Absolutely. So let's dive into that. When a small business owner is looking to start building their brand positioning and their messaging, like where do they even begin? How do they know where to start with really being able to build out that foundation?
Yeah. So, one thing is their business goals, right? What are their core offers? What are they pricing at? Who do they want to work with? How are they different from everybody else? Like if you sell candles, how are your candles different and why are they better than what I could get at Home Goods or
Hmm.
Marshalls or whatever? Figuring out those pieces. And a lot of times too, I feel like, um, business owners in the service industry, I'll just say, for another example, is if they start a marketing company, they feel like they have to do social media, they have to do paid ads, they have to do blah, blah, blah. But what are you passionate about? What are you good at? Like, you don't have to have everything, right? So I feel like scaling back the offers, you know, decision fatigue is real when it comes to, the customer experience, you know, figuring out who you're talking to and then having those offers kind of reeled in and tightened up and buttoned up, having your pricing accordingly, right? If you're, we'll go back to the candles. If you're selling candles to six-figure businesses, then maybe they're $100 a pop, right? Like you're not gonna go to a farmer's market and sell $100 candle, right? So it's like knowing where your audience shows up, how to speak to them, and all of that.
Hmm. Definitely. Yeah. And so once they determine their brand positioning and they feel like they have their messaging down pat, how do they actually build out that marketing strategy? So where should they begin? Because I know that's one point of struggle for small business owners is just analysis paralysis, where they're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
there's so many things to consider. I don't even know where to start. Like, in your opinion, where should they really begin and kick things off?
Yeah. So showing up where their audience is, right, is I would say that's the big one. Um, you know, one of the biggest things, especially with social media, so we'll chat that first, is everyone feels like they have to show up on TikTok, on Blue Sky, on Instagram, on Facebook, and LinkedIn or everywhere, right? But you don't. If you are a business strategy coach, maybe you want to show up on LinkedIn, maybe you want to show up on Instagram. Like you don't have to be everywhere. You
Mhm.
just have to be where your target audience is, right? So I feel like that's one of the biggest misconceptions and people get really overwhelmed when it comes to marketing because they feel like they have to spit out content for everything, right? And that's
Totally.
not always the case.
Definitely. So that's a really good point to determine where your target audience exists and where they spend their time and go all in on that. Do you have
Mhm.
any advice on how business owners can see where these people might exist, like to understand what channels or platforms they might be using?
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like the easiest tool that can help with that right now is AI. Doing some market research, I think is huge. I feel like a lot of business owners miss that step, in figuring out who your target audience is. I always say, too, one of the biggest and most helpful silly exercises is actually creating your client avatar.
Mhm.
Who are you talking to, right? So, for those of you that don't know what a client avatar is, it's actually creating more or less a fake ideal client. And when you put out your marketing, your whether it's a social media post or press release, whatever, um, speaking to that person specifically, right? So when you're doing your market research and you're putting together your client avatar, you're going to answer those questions, right? You're going to know where they show up because you're going to know exactly who they are. You're going to know exactly what they like, exactly what they're looking for, and your marketing should be talking to them, right?
Mhm.
So I think that's another really important layer. So it's like, you're working on the brand positioning piece. Part of that is your target audience, part of that is the client avatar. And then once you have those pieces, the marketing strategy, because you're building the marketing strategy based off of who that audience is and where they're showing up. So those are really like the main pieces initially.
Definitely. And once these small business owners have their strategy, they implement it, they've given it some time, how do they know whether that strategy is working or not?
Yeah, so that's where your analytics come in. You have to be looking at that, right? Like every month, what type of content's working? Am I getting website clicks from it? Am I getting DMs from it? Am I getting people interacting with my posts? Another little side note on top of that is, we're talking about social media right now. Social media is social. So if someone comments, "Oh, I love this candle," that's a potential customer for you. So you should
Mhm.
maybe follow them, like some of their posts, be commenting and things like that. Um, but also, I would say too, like going back to the website, I would make sure you have, Google Work Console set up, like all of these analytical tools that can tell you what is driving traffic to your website, where are they falling off, right? And a whole other rabbit hole we could go down is website work, right? Because if you have a website that's not converting, you could do an amazing job on your marketing campaign. You could be driving all kinds of traffic to your site, but if your website is like a bucket of water with holes in it, you're wasting your time, right? So you also another
Yeah.
layer of it is having a website set up that's ready to convert, that is, maybe has a sales funnel, has a workflow or some type of flow to get people to move through your website in a way that's going to get them to purchase or book or whatever it is that you do.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, the point of having a website that not only just having a website, period, but as you mentioned, having a website that converts is huge because, I mean, you probably agree, but it's like you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket of a platform or a channel that you don't actually own compared to your
Yeah.
website, which you do own, and making sure that you're driving people to that place. Especially as you shared, like spending a lot of time, potentially spending a lot of money on your marketing efforts. You want to make sure that it's not going to waste.
Yeah, it's true. And, I remember, I think it was like several months ago, but um, Facebook and Instagram had gone down for the day.
Mhm.
And I think like that's a good reminder of what you said. You don't own that audience, right? So I feel like that kind of takes us into a whole different conversation about like email lists and building, your own lists of people and clients that you do own. So like when social media does go down, or we had all that stuff going on with TikTok and potentially not being able to use it in the United States, like a lot of business owners could have gone out of business because of that, because they had all their eggs in that basket, right?
Mhm.
So again, like, and marketing can be overwhelming because it's not, like we said, just social media. It's press releases, it's blogs, it's SEO, it's having actual strategy and then executing the strategy and then having a website that converts, but also like building an email list and then nurturing that email list, and like so it definitely is a lot, and it's definitely overwhelming. And I realize that as I'm saying this, like, some people could be listening like, oh my god, Kelly, like, what do I do? Right? But so I'm just going to go back for a second and just say, like, the brand positioning is the number one thing business owners should be focusing on, right? That's
Mhm.
the foundation of your business. That includes understanding who your target audience is, what your goals are, who you're talking to, how you're talking to them. Then doing market research, understanding where they show up, and then having a marketing strategy that is specific to your target audience, right? So then that's
Mhm.
showing up where they show up, So before you start actually doing any marketing, you need to have these pieces in place, because you need to know who you're talking to, you need to know who you are as a business, and you need to know where people show up.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of people within Massachusetts Business Network, or the business owners within Massachusetts Business Network, are often solo entrepreneurs. So
Mhm.
it's just them. They don't really have a staff. They might have like a virtual assistant, or they might outsource like very few things. But I think that's why a lot of business owners default to like kind of going all in on just social media, because they're like, my
Mhm.
time is strapped. I only have so much time available in the day. And so that's something I'd love to pick your brain on, is like, for the solo business owner who truly only has so many hours in the day, do you have any advice on how they can efficiently like manage their own marketing strategy or implement their own marketing strategy when they don't have someone that they're able to delegate it to or outsource it to help?
Yeah, so I think, you know, what I find helpful is creating pieces of content that are reusable.
Hmm.
So, blog writing is really important. That SEO is a long game, but like, having a couple blogs that are going up on your website, maybe like you could start with one or two a month just to get the ball rolling. But then you can also create a carousel post off of that, or you could create a quick reel that's talking about top three things and pull it from your blog. Like, so you could have the same piece of content and then repurpose it in a few different ways, so that way you're not spinning your wheels all the time. And that way it also helps you not just focus on social media. So you're getting social media posts out of it, but you're also kind of starting to work on your SEO by getting some blogs up there and things like that. So
Hmm.
another thing, that this is what I do, that I find helpful because I do my own marketing, is I'll do a content day for myself. So I have my marketing strategy. I know the content pillars that I'm putting out there, and I have everything mapped out already. So it's less overwhelming when you have that, right? When you go into it. And I will record several pieces of content, reels, videos. I'll create, graphics in that day. So I have a bucket of content that I can just pull from and post.
Hmm.
So having that, I feel like you're creating a library for yourself, um, has been really helpful. And I do want to say this too, because this is a huge pet peeve of mine as a marketing professional. Um, Only hop on trends if it fits into your marketing strategy. I feel like there's a lot of business owners out there that all they do is just hop on trends because it's considered easy marketing, and they think that, getting all these views is, the goal. The goal isn't to
Hmm.
get a million views. The goal is to reach your target audience, because your target audience is who's going to book you or purchase from you, right? So if you're getting 10,000 views and no one's buying, who cares, right? Like,
Right.
you're a business owner. Your whole purpose of doing social media marketing and marketing in general is to convert sales, right? So if you're putting out content and information out there and no one's pulling the trigger on it, you know you're headed in the wrong direction. So I just want to throw that out there as a little caveat too, is the importance of actually having a marketing strategy and sticking to it. Yes, it's fun to do a trending reel here and there, but if it fits into your marketing strategy, that's the chef's kiss.
100%. And I feel like AI, unfortunately, has only accelerated the ease of people like jacking these trends. I mean, as of the time of
Yeah.
this recording, just a few days ago, the couple that climbed the Empire State Building, and then every business, it seemed like, was
Oh
creating
yeah.
an AI image of a flag with promoting their company. So you're right. I mean, if it doesn't make sense, like, don't do it just to do it. But there's also difference of like jumping on a trend like that compared to like paying attention to something that's newsworthy right now, like something that's coming up, that's a hot
Taylor Swift.
topic. Yes.
That's gonna be the next trend, right? Something with
Yes.
her wedding dress, or
Something, yeah. It's like there's a difference between like jumping on a silly trend or paying attention to what's like generating a lot of interest right now that might be a topic in the news that your business director relates to. That makes more
right.
sense, but not just using a chat GPT generated image just because everyone else is doing
Yeah,
it.
and since we're talking about that, I do want to just caution people that do the generated AI flyers. I understand why people do it. It's a very quick way to create a post, create a flyer, but it actually cheapens your brand. It really, really does. My recommendation would be to go into Canva and create several template posts for yourself and just repurpose those. They're going to make your business look so much more professional, a heck of a lot better. Because people can tell when it's AI generated, and you know, it's not always a good thing. So my
Yeah.
recommendation would be to move away from that, get some templates in place that'll make your life a little easier. May take you an hour up front, not 5 minutes in chat GPT, but it's going to make your brand look so much more tasteful.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even though these images that are AI generated might look different, I mean, they all have the same elements of way too much text on the image and the same font and like the same types of elements. And like you said, you just lose a lot of credibility and trust with your customers when they notice that. So I love that idea of just like spending the time up front to create a few templates or even hiring someone to create a few templates for you that you can just
Right.
reuse over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think, another question that I get asked a lot too is um, like around hiring help, right? If you have a marketing strategy in place, I don't think there's anything wrong with hiring a VA to execute it as long as they have like social media experience, right? They're probably going to be cheaper than a social media manager. If you can afford a social media manager, that's the preferred route to go because they're like that's their expertise. But if you can't, I would maybe say invest in a marketing strategy and then have a VA maybe execute it. Could be a
Mhm.
good starting route to go for those of you that are looking to have a few things taken off your plate.
Totally. Yeah. And that makes me wonder, Kelly, if there's one piece of advice you could give to a small business owner in Massachusetts who is really looking to up-level their marketing, like what would that one thing be?
The hill I will die on, which I've been saying like this whole time, is brand positioning. That
Mhm.
is the number one thing that every business owner needs to be focusing on first and foremost, because, like I keep saying, it's the foundation of everything going forward. So spend some time on that. If you don't understand how to do it, hire a professional. If you're going to hire someone for anything, I would say brand positioning in your website would be like the top investments I would start with.
Yeah, I love that. Kelly, this has been such an insightful episode, and I've so enjoyed having you on the show to share all of your top marketing tips with our listeners. And I'd love to have you share with them where they can find you online in case they'd like to reach out.
Yeah. So My social handles are GRATI Consulting, so that's GRATI. And then GRATI Collective is the mindset focused business. And then graticonsulting.com and graticollective.com.
Amazing. And I'll include those places in the show notes for listeners to easily find you. Thank you so much again for coming on right here in Mass.
Thank you so much for having me.